In today's episode, I want to focus on one main thing, which is to fill out the rest of this area that I have unlocked currently in Costanoa. And there's a couple of things within that that I want to focus on. One is adding the offices that we just recently unlocked. And then another is to fill out our city services, such as police and fire. As you'll notice, we have some crime scenes here. And fire is going to become more important as our industrial area is getting pretty big. And then I want to add in a high school to complement our elementary school over here. The first thing I'll focus on is adding a few offices, and I think a good place to start that is over here in this area where we are in between our industrial area and our residential. This is a good place to add some buildings like offices that will buffer between the industrial and the residential so that people living over here are not getting swamped by pollution. So I'll go ahead and start there and sort of fill out this area. And you'll notice we don't have this tile unlocked, so I'm gonna have to build a little bit around that. So I'll probably just make it quite small. So I'll go ahead and start there. So I've gone ahead and I've added in some office here, and I've left a little gap here around the park that I added in as well, just to keep this area a little bit more natural looking. So what I want to do while I'm here is actually just add a little bit of detail around this park. And that will just make an additional buffer between the residential here and the industrial here, and that's a little bit more of a natural buffer as opposed to these being buildings that are buffering between the residential and the industrial. So that's going to be it for now for our little office park here. There is a little bit of demand, but for now I want to focus on the next item on the list, which is adding a high school, and I want to scope out where I think is a good place to be doing that. There's a few criteria that I think about when I'm deciding on where to place a high school. So one of them is that the plot of land needs to be large enough to accommodate a high school. Another one is that the land should be relatively flat so that we can make additions easily. And then a third is that it should be pretty central to where people are living. So I have a few places in mind. One of them is all the way up here because this is a very large plot of land and it's very flat. The issue with this is that it's not very central to our residential uses, and it's actually downwind from our industrial. So it's not really a great place for a high school because it's not a great place for future residential either. It's also close to this garbage facility here. So another place that I was looking at is actually right in here, which is pretty flat, and it is large enough to accommodate a high school. The one issue is that it is not necessarily central to most of our residential, and it's also far from our elementary school, which is not great. But I think because it's such a large plot of land and there's not a lot going on around it, there's a lot of freedom in how I place things here. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and place it in this area, and then the next thing I will be doing is placing down some residential surrounding it to kind of fill out this area right here. So I'll go ahead and start that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just clear out my working space here so I don't have to worry about all these trees and stuff. Okay, so it's cleaned up, and there is this path that I've left here. I think I do want to keep that there, and I want to build around it. I think that should be fairly easy with the size of the high schools. And it's, interestingly enough, we don't actually have the money for the high school. So that is something that I'm going to have to take care of in one of a few ways. So the first way I could take care of that is I could take out a loan. Not particularly interested in taking out loans. I think we can probably balance the budget a little bit. And maybe what I'll do is I'll add in my residential beforehand. So I think that's probably the way to go, is to add in some residential and increase the taxable income under that category. And then I can add the high school in after. Okay, so I've filled out the blocks surrounding our high school, and it does look like we do have at least some money coming in. It's probably not enough to fund our high school, but at least we're not losing money at the moment. The next thing I want to look at is this particular block right here does have quite a bit of grading. So I want to pre-grade some of it beforehand so I can kind of see how large the houses can be in this area. This looks like a pretty good slope, so what I'll do then is also finish up our path back here. Once once these cranes disappear, I'll probably go back and detail this as I've been detailing these other areas like this one back here. So I've left Umber Street right here undeveloped because I mentioned that football field that comes with the high school, and I may want to put that down at some point. So I'm just kind of leaving this area undeveloped for the moment. The other areas that I'm looking to possibly develop would be maybe this corridor right here on Market Street. I think possibly some medium density would work in this area. There's also this space right here on Willow Street. So what I think I'll do is I'll take care of this block, this space right here, and add in some homes. So I went a bit crazy and unlocked the large parks and the sports parks just so I had them. And I added in a basketball court and a small playground right here just to fill out this particular space right here because it was only had kind of like an awkwardly shaped zoning cells in here. What I want to do is then just fill out these other green spaces with some trees and then think about what is going to be on this side of Market Street. So I'll go ahead and start with the detailing. So I tried to make it pretty lush back here because with those like triangles, it looks a little bit strange if you can see them like in their rough edges just dead on. So I added in a little bit more than I usually would. And if we zoom in back here, yeah, these homes are really butting up right against this stuff. So it is nice for them to have a little bit of extra foliage here for added privacy. And as I'm zoomed in here, I can see a few extra spaces that I think I'd like to fill out. And then over on this side of Willow Street, I kind of want to do the same treatment as I've been doing and kind of go through these back spaces and add some larger trees. so that it's not perfect by any means. There's still some oddities, like we have these smaller homes here, and then there's these sort of empty spaces that I've just filled out with trees. But I think it looks pretty good given what we have available in terms of buildings. I do like that there's some variety in the building size here. These regular blocks make that kind of happen naturally, where you have some longer, some shorter, and you get these different shapes of buildings. And I think it looks overall pretty good. And these two areas here then blend together pretty well. So this block here is kind of what I'm targeting next. Because we have some of the low rent housing, I might put a small one here. I've mentioned this before, that these negative spaces can sometimes look a little bit better when there's a larger building next to them. And then what I also will do is, there's not a whole lot of like surface parking in this area, and I never love to add in surface parking, but I think with a larger building like this, it can make sense. So what I'll do is I'll try to sneak one in here and have it maybe in this corner here. I think looks good to take up this awkward space. And then on Market Street, what I want to have is probably more commercial. We don't have the demand for it yet though, so I think at this point it makes sense to maybe build this one out so that we have a similar thing going on all corners of this street. And then on this side over here, what I'd like to do is, I think, just add in probably some more medium density up till there. And then on the corner, maybe have a larger medium density building there. And we'll see how that looks. I'm not sold on it yet, but we're starting to get some of these more medium density buildings in this area. And I think that's a good thing coming down Market Street, is this is where we'll start to see that density. So a quick look at our budget. We're making about 14,000 per month at this point. That's going to take a while for us to get our school. In the meantime, I think what I'll do is I'll focus on filling out some of the rest of this area and start thinking about where the roads will go. So I'll start with this street here, which is also named Willow Street, and I'll continue that one on and then fill out maybe this space right over here. So in this smaller space, I want to get a park in, and I think we can fit one of the tennis courts in there. And let me double check. It is not perfectly flat, but I think it's flat enough that the terraforming that happens when you put in the tennis court will not be too bad. So I think probably maybe I can get it in like this. I think that's going to be the best look, at least. And then I'll go ahead and fix the surfaces and detail a little bit. So I added this custom park here as well as the tennis court. I'm noticing that what I'm doing here is not actually helping our budget that much, just because I'm spending a lot of money on like this tennis court and that parking lot and some of these trees and stuff. So I'm going to try to focus a little bit more just on zoning these areas out so that I'm not spending too much money. And then it's going to be difficult to place our high school unless I can get the next milestone, which is still a long ways off, about 3,000 more XP. So barring that, I'm going to have to try to just zone a little bit more and not spend. That's going to be my goal from now on. You'll notice this little bit of terrain that I was dealing with here. A good way to get around some of those issues is to, like I've done there, just add paths in to get the zoning where you want it to go. And then in these other spaces that are going to pop up, it just makes sense to add some trees and make it look almost like a forest back here. So that's what I'll do next. And then with these areas, like you'll see that I just did I used the tree brush to go through here just to get it filled out quickly. And then what I like to do afterwards is go in closely and look at some of these other smaller spaces here and try to just get some targeted trees into those spaces. There we go. So I filled out a decent amount of this space right here that was not filled up yet. And I've done quite a bit of landscaping in these back areas behind these homes right here. With all those trees that I placed, you can see we're at 69,000 now. We are making 2,000 an hour, which is pretty good. I think what I may do is just let things simulate for a little bit. You can see that we are definitely in need of a police station as well. So that may be something the city services may take precedence over the high school at the moment. I can also see that our garbage is full. So what I'll do is actually I'll take care of that by just expanding our landfill, and then I'll let things simulate just a little bit so that hopefully our money issues are sorted out. While I was letting things simulate, I did start thinking about, we do have a little bit more office demand, and our office is now really centralized in this one location. So anybody that's living over here has to commute over here if they work in these offices. So what I want to do is give some other options for offices in this central area right here. And it's really only going to be maybe 1 or 2 offices, but it's going to probably be like right around this intersection here. That's probably a good one. I'll put probably just 2 offices right here, and that'll increase our tax revenue, so that's good. And then the space has been empty for a while, and I just know that at some point, basically that's all going to be commercial. And because this space over here is, it's actually very similar to that, so I'm going to zone that up as office as well. And then once that comes in, I'll probably do a little bit of extra detailing back here. And I'm starting to notice as well that this area right here is low density, and it's surrounded by higher density uses. So one of the ways that I like to play this game is that over time, as the city progresses, you'll start to notice that higher density uses start bumping up against lower density uses. So this is an area that I would target probably first to densify and redevelop in the future. So if I take a look back at our budget, we are actually making a decent amount of money at this point. Still about, that 69,000 per month, which is pretty good. It is taking a while to get up to the amount that I need for the police or the high school. So actually what I will do first is I'm going to place a police station down, specifically the small police station down first, because it has been such a problem in the city, as particularly in our industrial area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the simulation speed to 3, and then I am going to start scoping out a place to put this police station. And I think basically this area that I'm zoomed in on is the hotspot. So that's going to be the targeted area is somewhere in here, and you can see we do have some open spaces throughout, and this Willow Street right here seems to be probably the best candidate. And I know we have this city services facility over here, this small medical clinic, so I might want to put it actually in that same area, and it should fit nicely. It does fit nicely right here. We just need the money for it. So I do think actually like right here off of Amity Street is exactly where I want that to go. So once we do get enough money for that, I will be putting that there. So we're almost there. I'm just going to let things simulate for a little while and zoom in on an interesting area while we wait. Okay, so we're just about there. I'm going to slow things down. And this really is kind of like the awkward middle phase of the game where you kind of just have to let things simulate out unless you're wanting to take loans, which I am not really interested in doing. But if you're not going to take loans, you kind of just have to wait things out a little bit sometimes. And I think it's a nice way to play to, let things simulate out like that, because it is a little bit more natural of a progression of your city. So I definitely don't mind playing like that. It's just, it can be challenging sometimes. And with the small police station in, our budget is actually still looking more or less good. So I think it is just kind of a waiting game at this point until we can afford some of the other city services we need, and also zoning where I'm able to so that we can get a little bit closer to the next milestone. I've been taking a look at this aerial view to get a sense of where I can add some additional zoning. And I think I've come across 2 spots that I think are the best for it. So one would be somewhere in this area. There's a lot of open space, and I think I just avoided doing anything there because it's on this curve right here. And I think maybe adding some commercial in that area as well is on my mind. So that's one, and I'll probably do that first just because it's quite simple. The second one is over in this area. I want to have a street following the coast here. Then it'll terminate here, but at some point I think there will be some infill right around here, which I think is what had happened in San Francisco in reality, because otherwise I don't know how the street gets around this hill here. So I'll go ahead and start here and just zone in a few homes. There's some awkward zoning here, but I'm all right with that. That's something I'll come back later to and just throw some trees in there and it should look okay. So that's one space. The second space, which is over here, I'm gonna have to think a little bit more about setting up a road network first. So I'll go ahead and do that right off the bat. This street here is the second one I want to get a actual name for. I think it's Embarcadero Street, but I actually will probably have to look that up later and I'll change it if it needs to be changed. But that is the name of the particular street that fronts the water in San Francisco. So I want to maintain that naming. I'll try to bring in Market and tee it off, but it might cause issues with combining these 2 streets into one, so I'll see what happens with that. And it looks like we maintain this like nub right here, which causes the street naming to be maintained here, so that is good. The next thing is I'll probably just look into bringing these streets just straight in. And it looks like I don't actually have the money to be putting streets down, so I'm gonna go ahead and simulate for just a bit and make sure that the city doesn't catch on fire or anything. And while I was looking at this particular view, I came up with the idea of maybe putting in some medium density buildings into the spots where commercial is not zoning in yet, and possibly some low income housing over here, low rent housing. And I think that is a good place for those to go because I expect these to be like higher density nodes anyways. So it seems to me to be completely fine to be putting some higher density uses there. So I will go ahead and take care of that, probably starting in this area here since it's where the curve starts. Yeah, so if you take a look at the zoning, this right here is zoned as commercial. What I'll probably do is I will go ahead and take it back a notch and put in some lower density housing. And actually what I'll start with is this medium density just up until there, and then come back through and reorient the zoning once again. I'll make that into the North American medium density housing and see how that looks. I think I'll back off just one right there. Make it a 3x3. And because that's all zoned in now, I'm able to bring this alleyway through, which I had planned for. Let me make sure I get the right orientation. And that alley will likely just terminate where this school is because school it is in the way of this alley. So I think this whole block is dedicated to the school. And then in this particular area, I think I want to do a similar treatment of just backing off this right here, this zoning, and getting some houses in that way. And a similar thing right here of, oh, that is bad. Similar thing right here, where I will, and I really worked up the zoning bad. And then I'll leave this space open for, let's say, a dog park, which will cost me a little bit of money, but I don't think they're that expensive. You know, 10,000 should be okay. And it looks like that screw up a little bit of the zoning, that's okay. It gives me a little bit extra space to just pop up path back here, which I think is fine. Yeah, the zoning got a little bit messed up there, and I think it might do that thing where it glitches back and forth, but I'll put some trees back here and hopefully it looks somewhat natural. And then again on this side, I'll do a similar thing. And on this side, I think I do want to try to get some of the commercial back in if I can. So I will zone it in as such, and then this will still look empty for now, but I think that is fine. We did get a little bit of extra medium density here, and if we take a look, it looks a little bit, I wouldn't say out of place, but considering this is all lower density right here, it's not exactly fitting in, considering like this is also not filled out. So once the rest of this fills out, I think it should look a little bit better, but for now it looks a little bit yeah, a little bit out of place, but I think it's okay. And I think when the detailing comes in as well, it should look a little bit better. And then over here, I'm noticing that I just have a kind of empty space with the parks, and I don't think I necessarily need to be saving that space for anything at the moment. So I will just fill this out with some lower density housing. And then while I'm here, I do see there's just a small gap. So in a small gap like this, I want to just detail it right away. And then this I inadvertently zoned in the wrong type, and there are issues happening still in this area. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. I think this is just gonna be a problem area, and I'm gonna place a small playground there because that'll not have any of those particular issues. And then now that there's a bit of money in the bank, I'm gonna go back over here and continue my roads. Cool, so we got the tiny town milestone, which actually gives us 125,000, and I think that almost gives us enough to get the high school now. I am somewhat hesitant to actually get the high school rather than a fire station, because I think the fire station is going to become a priority in the near future. I don't know why we haven't actually had fires yet, but it is kind of inevitable at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and place one of those down, I think, instead of the high school. And just like I said, we do now have a fire in our industrial area, but I'm pondering exactly where I want to put my fire station, because I've been thinking about putting it in the city services area over here, but I think that's a little bit too much concentration of services, especially considering like in real life there's overlap between the medical clinic and the fire and rescue, as well as some overlap with the police. So I don't know that I want them to be so centralized. I think I'd like that to be a little bit further away, maybe even closer here to Market Street, and then that will eventually have direct access over here once this tile gets purchased. So I think that's what I'll go ahead and do, is pop a fire station over here. And that actually does still give us space for the alley right there. And because there's, well, while I'm here, there's row homes on the opposite side right here. So I think I'll just fill out the same right next door. And it might be, you might wonder like, why is there homes right next to this fire station? That happens pretty regularly. having homes right next to a fire station, they're often just like mixed in residential areas. So with that in place, it also allows me to put in my alleyways all the way through here. And hopefully I don't mess this up. There we go. And while I was over in this area putting in the firehouse, I noticed that there's some space right here that I think I just want to put some trees in. So I'll do that very quickly as well. So coming back to this waterfront area right here, I think it makes sense to have this side open, and then on the other side of Embarcadero Street to have probably some commercial uses or maybe some higher density residential buildings, just because it's close to the water and it's going to be a popular spot. Also, on the commercial side of things, we only have this one commercial building in this whole neighborhood over here. So I think having some additional right here would be helpful. So I've mixed things up a little bit here with some medium density homes right here. And then as you get closer to Market Street, or further away from Market Street rather, you get more single family homes, but these homes are the waterfront North American ones. So they're, you know, a little bit more bougie, I guess, than some of the other homes in the region. And then in this area here, I've left it as is for now, just because I don't have enough demand for commercial, and that's kind of what I want to put over here. So I'm just going to leave this undeveloped for now and take care of that later. In this area on Sunnyside Street, though, I'm considering also to put another few office buildings that just serves to add a little bit of possibly more demand for commercial in this area. So what I'll do is I'll just put that one there and then maybe an additional one. I'll leave one corner open and put an additional office right there. So I've been letting things simulate just a little bit, and I'm actually going to boost up the speed to 3 so that we can make more money, because I do want to put in that high school before the end of the episode. But one of the things I've been thinking about in this aerial view, and I think it helps to look at the aerial view every once in a while to kind of get a sense of where the city's going. I think this area over here is where I will expand probably the next episode, the industrial, because our industrial demand is pretty high right now. And this area is downwind of our current industrial area, and it's also near the garbage facility. So I think it's a good candidate for some additional industrial. It also has easy access to our highway via this street right here. Since I don't want to do that now, I think I'm just going to let it simulate for a while until I have enough to be able to afford the high school, and then I'll place that and call it for now. So that definitely took a very long time to get the 150,000 that I needed for the high school. So I actually ended up closing OBS and stopping the recording so that I could edit a little bit. But yeah, I'm noticing that maybe went a little too excessive on the simulating. The landfill is full. So that is actually what I'll do just right off the bat, because I can see it's also affecting our coal power plant. Okay, and then back to placing our school. I'm thinking it'll probably go right here. I'm just going to get rid of this so that I have space that I need. And then I'll place it down. I don't think the football field will actually fit on this side, but it's possible that it does. I think maybe having this school, I'm just going to prioritize actually making the placement look good. And I think where the placement ends up looking quite nice is if I turn off snapping, I kind of face it towards this angled intersection here. If I can get it to meet up, and maybe actually what I'll do is I'll go like something like this. And then what I'm gonna do is bring in actually a one-way road. No, yeah, a one-way road. I'll bring it right in front here and then curve it into this street and curve it from this street into here. And then that's kind of like a circulation pattern. I don't know how that will exactly fare with this awkward intersection that I've got going, but I think I'm hoping it's going to be okay. And I also noticed that I think a home got deleted or something. But yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about that. And then the other thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and I will fix up the surfaces right here. And then I think what kind of most high schools in the US have is actually some parking. And since I am so low on money, what I'm going to go ahead and do is call it an episode for now. I got this down. That's kind of my last goal that I had. And I've been trying to make more concrete goals as I build, just because in the past I've kind of just done whatever and then it gets to be a little bit frantic at times. So hopefully that's a better style for viewing as well, but it's definitely helping me edit, I'm noticing. So yeah, that's kind of the reasoning behind that. So to give a quick recap on what we got accomplished in this episode, one of the things we did was we kind of filled out a lot of empty spaces. This small block here is a good example of that, and did a little bit of detailing to fill things out. If we zoom out, you can also see that I filled out a bit more of our grid right here. So that was another goal of the episode. And then I've added a police station and a fire station for some additional city services coverage. And then I've added this high school right here. And I'm pretty happy with where we're at right now, because we do have a positive monthly balance, which is pretty huge. That's something that I've struggled to get in the past. And I think part of that is that we're just using the land pretty efficiently. And it's also pretty conducive to development. There's not a whole lot of terrain that we're dealing with that is difficult to build on quite yet. I mean, we're coming up against this hill right here, and the further up we go, the harder it gets. But for now, I'm pretty happy with actually having a positive budget. And I think in the next one, we might be able to actually purchase additional tiles to make greater use of the space. Yeah, we do have to get the bank balance reined in a little bit, which will probably just be a bit of simulating and making sure we're not going into the red. But I think at this point, we're pretty stable, so that shouldn't be too difficult to do. And we might just be able to add in a bit of industrial to get a little bit more in taxation. I'd like to thank anyone who's watched the video, and if you have any feedback on anything in particular on the build or with editing, some improvements you'd like to see there, please let me know down in the comments and I'll do my best to address it. It's really helpful feedback as I continue to learn how to edit videos. But with that, I will see you in the next one.